All right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast, NBA podcast. My name is Keith, here alone for a solo interview episode. The full episode with John and Chuck will be out on Thursday as usual. Today's episode with Sean Highkin, former Bulls beat reporter, because Fred Hoiberg got fired. Kind of surprising, the timing. We talk about it a little bit, but my main takeaway is they absolutely knew they were doing this a long time ago. They'd made their minds up a long time ago. To do it immediately on the Monday, pretty much early morning for NBA people, like the start of the Monday work week, right after Lauri Markkanen got healthy, screams to me they'd been planning it for a very long time. So not great for Fred Hoiberg, who, despite looking exactly like Aaron Eckhart, could not keep his job, but I'm sure he'll land on his feet. Anyway, before we get to the interview, just real briefly, our t-shirt site, TeePublic, where we have all of our t-shirt designs. I don't know if all of you guys know we even have that, but they have sales every now and then that we don't control. Just whenever they say it's on sale, there's a sale. So right now, there's a 30% off on all of our t-shirts, including the brand new Boban NBA logo designs done by listener Daniel Box. But those are all for sale right now at teepublic.com/user/fast break breakfast. That's teepublic.com/user/fast break breakfast. I actually bought a bunch of stickers from there for all the designs. Those are pretty cheap, but the t-shirts are all 30% off right now, and I think you have another week to buy them. They won't be on sale for a week. They're only on sale for 3 days, I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But you have another week. You can order them before Christmas. So if you want to buy someone Seriously How's It Goink shirt for Christmas, or a Fast Break Breakfast t-shirt for a Christmas gift, you can do that. And you support our show when you do that. So again, if you want some basketball t-shirts, check them out. teepublic.com/user/fast break breakfast. I know, not a very convenient or memorable URL, but maybe go check that out. Also, the other way, I know we tell you a lot of codes to support us, but the main ones, SeatGeek.com, that Fast Break, just like the Twitter handle, will get you $20 off any ticket purchase if it's your first time you're using SeatGeek, so that's a really good deal. And then always patreon.com/Fast Break Breakfast. We can get more involved with you there. All right, enough of that. Now let's talk about the Chicago Bulls and poor Fred Hoiberg.
Do I sound okay? Cool. Sure, that's fine. Yeah, let's go.
My guest today is a writer for Bleacher Report and Dime Magazine. He used to be the Chicago Bulls beat writer and is a return guest on Fast Break Breakfast, Sean Highkin. Sean, how's it going?
It's good, man. It's kind of a hectic day, I guess, in Bulls land. I have to say I was not expecting to see that news that I saw when I woke up this morning. I'm not surprised they did it. I was a little surprised they did it today.
So hectic news in Bulls land. Do you still consider yourself to live in Bulls land?
I mean, I still know a lot of people connected with the team. I still know a lot of people who cover the team. I still kind of, because of all that and because I was there for 4 years, I still, keep a pretty close eye on. I mean, obviously at this point, I kind of follow the whole league more so than just one team. But, I still find myself keeping an eye on the Bulls more often than not, which hasn't been very fun to do the last couple of years, but it's still something just because I still have a lot of connections there. It's something that I do. So, yeah, I saw the news this morning and, like I said, I'm not surprised that they did it during the season. I was a little surprised that they fired Hoiberg today because they just got Lauri Markkanen back over the weekend. We didn't,
that part seemed cold-blooded.
Well, I mean, the thought had kind of been, they wanted to wait and see how how the team did once he got back. And then the other thing is that Chris Dunn and Bobby Portis still haven't gotten back yet. I think those guys are supposed to be back in the next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to see just kind of how everything looked with a full roster before they made a decision. I had heard that it was not out of the question that Fred would be let go, by maybe the All-Star break if if they didn't see the kinds of improvements they want. But I had thought they were going to give him a chance to see what he could do with a healthy roster. And, obviously after one game of Markkanen being back, it just, I think they decided to go the other direction.
Yeah. All right. So before we break it down any further, we're getting out of order here. When you woke up, when you found out the Hoiberg news, did you at least have breakfast, Sean?
I haven't yet. I've had so much stuff to do in terms of, talking to people, dealing with that. I have not had a chance to have breakfast yet. I'm ashamed to say maybe that just makes me a bad guest on Fast Break Breakfast, but no, I have not had a chance to yet.
It's all right. We encounter this problem more often than not. Or I guess more often than we like, but it's okay. We'll give you a pass.
You should probably rename the podcast just because of how much you've encountered it.
Yeah. Fast break, not break. I don't know. We'll have to work on it. Anyway, so I thought the news was completely cold-blooded, that they did wait until Lauri Markkanen had played one game. I also thought maybe, was it any coincidence that it occurred after Doug McDermott played maybe his best 5-game streak of his career?
Well, I mean, Doug McDermott was a guy that the front office really wanted. Remember, they moved up. They traded a bunch of picks to move up to get him, and then he never really panned out in Chicago the way that they had hoped he would. So here's the thing. I was looking at the schedule, and I was actually just talking about this with a couple of Bulls people yesterday. Not people in the organization, but friends of mine who cover the team and are like around the team. And we were kind of talking about how, this was probably, within the realm of possibility that something might happen soon. So here's their upcoming schedule. So they're what are they? They're 5-19 right now. They've lost their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They lost their last like 7 or 8 games. The only win in the last month, basically, their only 2 wins were against the Cavs and the Suns, who are the only 2 teams in the league that are worse than them. Here's their upcoming schedule. They're in Indy tomorrow. They got Oklahoma City. Then they got Boston, Sacramento, Orlando, San Antonio, and then Oklahoma City again. That's probably 7 losses right there.
Well, I mean, the schedule always looks hard when you're bad.
Well, right, but I think like those teams, like I'm looking through that schedule. I mean, I think they're probably going to beat Indy now because teams always win the fired coach game.
Yeah,
but it's it's like this is just like the timing of it is just kind of, and I mean, this is not, the Bulls are not really strangers to doing this. They've fired coaches on Christmas Eve before. Like that's a thing that's happened. Tim Floyd. If you'll recall, kind of in the early 2000s, it was that's like that. That's a thing that they've done. So I'm not really surprised that maybe they did it, right after Markkanen. But at the same time, I was a little bit surprised just because you had thought they had kind of made it seem like they were going to give Fred a chance with the full roster, and he's never really gotten a chance.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's weird to say a guy who's in the 4th year of his contract with the team never really got a shot, but I think it's been pretty well documented. They didn't really build a roster around what his announced strengths were. To talk about, he want to do some run and gun, get shooters. Like they never really had shooters on the team, and then obviously he gets to this season and they blow up the team, I guess, the quote unquote, with the Jimmy Butler deal to try to bring some young guys in, but then they kind of quit on that, or they signed Jabari Parker and Zach LaVine. And again, like you mentioned, this year Chris Dunn's been hurt, Bobby Portis has been hurt, Lauri Markkanen obviously has been out the whole year. Even a guy like Denzel Valentine hasn't played, who maybe that's just like a rotational piece. So it's weird. He's been around, but maybe he never really got like an honest chance to succeed.
Well, let's go through this year by year. So they fire Thibodeau. And I think the mistake that the front office made the first year was things got so bad between Gar Forman and John Paxson and Tom Thibodeau in terms of like their personal relationships and all that stuff, that the front office kind of talked themselves into thinking that Tibbs was the entire problem. And if they just got rid of the coach they didn't like and brought in a coach that they did like, then that would just solve everything. And so they kept the exact same roster. Like, I think Bobby Portis, who was a rookie, was the only guy that was new on the roster that year. Other than that, it was the exact same roster. So if Hoiberg comes in, they're talking about championship level expectations. And then, you're talking about a guy who wants to play fast, and he has a roster that was built for Tom Thibodeau. Like, you're playing like Pau Gasol and Joakim Noah as your front court guys, and you're talking about, well, we want to space the floor and shoot a lot of threes and play a fast pace. And you've got those guys in the roster. That's just not going to work. So he was kind of put in a position of a disadvantage right away. Then, the next summer, they trade Derrick Rose. They let Pau Gasol and Joakim Noah go in free agency. And they say, we're going to get younger and more athletic. We really want to build a roster that Fred's going to be comfortable playing. Then they turned around and signed Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade, which, and the Rondo one I kind of understood in a vacuum because they needed a veteran point guard when they decided not to trade Jimmy that summer. But the Wade one made no sense. And so that roster made the playoffs. And I think they probably would have beaten the Celtics in the first round if Rondo hadn't gotten hurt 2 games into the series. They were 2-0 in that series. And then, once Rondo got hurt, they were playing like Isaiah Cannon at point guard and stuff. And so then, they trade Jimmy. I thought Fred did a pretty good job last year with the roster that he was given, especially, once Nico came back, they were playing fast. They were playing the way he wanted to play. And then obviously after that, they decided, they traded Nico, and they basically told Robin Lopez and Justin Holiday, the 2 veterans on the roster, to go away for the rest of the year and not play so they could play the young guys and tank. And then this year, like you said, they signed Jabari Parker, who, Jabari Parker at this point in his career is best suited to be a 4. And who are your 2 franchise cornerstones as far as guys you drafted? Lauri Markkanen, who's a power forward, and Wendell Carter, who's a center. So you're bringing in Jabari Parker. They wanted him to play small forward. Fred Hoiberg, like 2 games into the preseason, was just like, no, we're not doing that. He can't play small forward. I actually give Fred a lot of credit for how he's handled a lot of the, rotational stuff this year. I had been critical of him back when I was on the beat a few years ago when Jimmy Butler was on the team. There were a lot of guys who said they didn't know their roles. That was a thing I feel like Fred has gotten better at, and I think he's actually gotten pretty good at managing that kind of stuff. But he has just never been put in a position to succeed, and now it seems like he's really just the fall guy for what issues that really fall more on management than they do on the coaching staff.
Well, I see a lot of Bulls Twitter people talking about all the various shooters who have been unloaded over the last just couple of years, just in personnel decisions. Like, I was making a joke about Doug McDermott, but at the very least, he can make a 3-pointer. Then you have like Etwan Moore, they let walk. They chose MCW and like Campaign over Spencer Dinwiddie, who was on the roster a few years ago. And obviously they traded away Mirotic last year. It's like they've gotten rid of all these 3-point shooters and just kind of keep, I don't know what the term is, reshuffling the deck or just starting over with like guys who aren't really, those aren't their strengths shooting. And then again, put them in a really tough spot with this crowded front court with no clear like way to make that work.
Yeah, well, okay, so the Mirotic thing, that was, they had the situation with him and Portis, and so that was
right.
That was
a little awkward.
one of them needed to go, and I think they viewed Bobby as more of a long-term piece than Nico, and so that's why that trade happened. And I give them credit for that trade because they got a first-round pick for him. Now, whether Chandler Hutchison, who they ended up taking with that pick, pans out, that's a different discussion. He's shown some flashes. I think maybe he can be a rotation player in this league. But, some of those other ones that you talked about, those were pretty indefensible. Spencer Dinwiddie in particular, he was on the Bulls roster in training camp. And then they traded for Michael Carter-Williams like right before the season started. And then they said, you know what, we're good at point guard now with Michael Carter-Williams as our backup behind Rondo. So now they waived Spencer Dinwiddie. And they used that roster spot to bring in R.J. Hunter, who played a total of 9 minutes for the Bulls before he was waived. And then Spencer Dinwiddie, meanwhile, gets picked up by Brooklyn, has a pretty good year there that year. And then last year he was one of the 3 finalists for most improved player. And now we're talking about, him being a big free agent this summer and getting a big extension. And, it's just, all that kind of stuff. And Etwan Moore is a guy that, he was really solid for them. First Hoiberg year, and then it seemed like he was going to re-sign, and then New Orleans came through with that offer, and that would have been a better use of their money. They'll tell you that they just didn't want to tie up their cap with long-term contracts. That's the thing they always point to whenever people criticize them for the Rondo deal and the Wade deal. they say, well, those were in the summer of 2016 when everybody else was giving out these giant 4-year deals to these guys, and so we decided to only give out short-term deals. That's the thing they love to tout. But E'Twaun Moore is making what, $7-8 million a year? That's a perfectly reasonable salary for a useful role player who plays both ends of the floor.